A healthy pipeline is not protected only by what enters it or what moves forward inside it. It is also protected by what gets removed clearly when it no longer deserves weight. That is why disqualification matters so much. Many businesses treat disqualification as if it were a negative outcome to avoid for as long as possible. A case stays open. The lead is still visible. No final rejection has been stated, so the opportunity remains inside the pipeline with some level of hope attached to it. From the outside, that can feel safer. The business keeps optionality. The pipeline stays fuller. The opportunity still appears alive. But weak opportunities that are not being disqualified clearly enough do not make the pipeline stronger. They make it less honest. A healthy pipeline does not only depend on strong qualification at the top, it also depends on strong disqualification when the evidence no longer supports continued confidence. That distinction matters because every weak case that stays open too long starts affecting the whole system. Forecasting gets softer, priority gets noisier, reviews get heavier. Stronger opportunities have to compete with cases that are still visible but no longer deserve the same operational weight. This is why disqualification should never be treated as administrative cleanup. It is part of pipeline quality. It protects clarity, it protects focus, and it prevents false possibility from occupying space that stronger opportunity should have had instead.
What makes this difficult is that disqualification often feels like loss. The opportunity is still open. The lead may still reply occasionally. Some past signal of interest still exists in memory. So the business hesitates. It waits longer. It gives another cycle. It keeps the case visible just in case momentum returns. That instinct is understandable, but hesitation can become expensive. Because a weak opportunity does not stay neutral while it remains open. It keeps affecting the system. It adds weight to the pipeline. It takes space in reviews. It absorbs follow-up attention. It softens confidence around what is truly strong and what is only still unresolved. That is the real cost. A weak case does not have to be fully impossible to deserve disqualification. It only has to stop earning the level of belief the pipeline is still giving it. That is an important standard, because disqualification is not about being pessimistic, it is about being accurate. If fit is weak, if timing is no longer credible, if the next step is not real, or if the opportunity is staying alive mainly through delay, then keeping it active does not protect pipeline health. It weakens it. This is why strong disqualification is part of strong governance. It prevents the business from preserving false possibility just because closure feels uncomfortable. And once that discipline exists, the pipeline becomes easier to trust because open opportunity has to keep earning its place instead of surviving through hesitation alone.
Strong disqualification also improves the meaning of everything that stays inside the pipeline. That is one of its biggest advantages. When weak opportunities are not removed clearly enough, the pipeline starts carrying too much false weight. Now the business cannot read volume cleanly. It cannot read confidence cleanly. It cannot read priority cleanly, because too much of what is visible no longer deserves the same belief. This is where disqualification becomes more than removal. It becomes signal protection. A healthy pipeline should help the business understand what is truly alive, what is weakening, and what no longer deserves active confidence. That only becomes possible when weaker cases stop remaining in the system through habit, hope, or avoidance. Otherwise, every stronger opportunity has to compete with unresolved residue. That creates drag. Reviews become heavier. Forecasting becomes softer. Coverage looks stronger than it is. And the business starts spending energy sorting through ambiguity that should have been removed earlier. This is why strong disqualification does not reduce pipeline quality. It protects it. Because once weak cases stop surviving by default, the opportunities that remain carry more honest meaning. And that makes the whole system lighter, cleaner, and much easier to trust. This is also why weak disqualification distorts attention. A case that should have lost weight continues receiving discussion, review time, and follow-up energy simply because it is still visible. That creates a false priority. The opportunity looks active enough to stay in circulation, but not strong enough to justify the amount of space it is still taking. This is where stronger opportunities quietly start losing support. Not because they are weak, because weaker cases are still occupying capacity that should have shifted away from them already. That is what makes disqualification an allocation decision, not just a cleanup step. It decides which opportunities still deserve active attention and which ones should stop competing for the same operational weight. Without that discipline, the pipeline keeps spreading effort across too many soft cases. Now the team is busier but less selective. The system is fuller, but less precise. And once precision weakens, pipeline quality weakens with it. This is why healthy pipelines depend on strong disqualification. Not because removing opportunities looks efficient, because it protects the business from continuing to spend time, confidence, and attention on cases that no longer deserve the same place in the system.
Strong disqualification also improves forecasting. A pipeline becomes unreliable when too many weak opportunities keep their place without enough current evidence to justify it. The business still sees volume, still sees open cases, still feels that future revenue may be forming. But if those cases no longer deserve real confidence, the forecast becomes softer than it should be. That is the problem. Weak opportunities do not only waste attention, they distort expectation. They make coverage look stronger. They make confidence look broader. They make the pipeline feel safer than the underlying reality supports. This is why disqualification is part of forecast discipline. It helps the business decide which possibilities still deserve weight and which ones should stop influencing revenue expectations. Without that discipline, the forecast starts carrying too much old hope and too little current truth. A stronger system does not wait for a weak case to become obviously dead before reducing its influence. It acts when the evidence no longer supports the same level of belief. That is what keeps the pipeline honest. Because once weak opportunities stop surviving through delay, the opportunities that remain become much more meaningful. And once the pipeline becomes more meaningful, forecasting becomes lighter, cleaner, and far easier to trust.
That is why strong disqualification should never be treated as a sign that the pipeline is shrinking. Very often, it is a sign that the pipeline is becoming healthier. A weaker system tries to protect possibility for too long. A stronger system protects clarity earlier. That difference matters, because pipeline health does not come from keeping as many opportunities open as possible. It comes from making sure that open opportunities still deserve the weight they carry. If they do not, the system should change. Confidence should change. Priority should change. And in many cases, the opportunity itself should stop remaining active inside the same level of expectation. That is what strong disqualification does. It prevents weak cases from continuing to distort attention, forecasting, coverage, and review quality. It keeps the pipeline cleaner without making it weaker. In fact, it usually makes the pipeline stronger, because once weak opportunities stop surviving through hesitation, the business can finally see how much real strength is actually left in the system. That is the real value. Not removing opportunity for the sake of looking disciplined, but protecting the pipeline from carrying more false possibility than the business can afford to believe in. That is the real role of strong disqualification. It does not make the pipeline smaller in a negative way. It makes the pipeline truer. A healthy system does not protect every possibility equally. It protects the quality of what remains active. That is why weak opportunities should not stay open just because closure feels uncomfortable. If the evidence no longer supports continued confidence, the pipeline should change. Because once weak cases stop surviving through hesitation, the opportunities that remain become more meaningful, more trustworthy, and much easier to manage well. That is how strong disqualification protects pipeline health.
not by removing value, but by removing distortion.